All right, guys, so let's get started, right? So here's something that we all often hear. Can anyone turn an average Joe into a leader with proper training and education? I guess the more important question is, even with training and education, can anyone really lead others? It's very important. Becoming a leader, we can actually learn a process and all that stuff, but leading others, really leading others into becoming maybe successful people or great leaders, that could be tricky. So Scott, with your awesome background in the military, West Point trained, what do you think about that? In your personal experience, do you really think an average Joe can become a leader with just education and training?
That's a great question, and that's the multi-million-dollar question, because that's why so many of these institutions exist. And so I'm a
Yes.
product of West Point, 4 years academics and military instruction, which is based on the premise that you can take a young high school graduate and turn out a leader, commission them as an officer and do that. And I've also been through a very micro training, which the Army calls its premier leadership training, is Ranger School, which is a very intense, very physical, very demanding on a micro scale to train leaders. And both
I'm
of
going to
those.
quickly jump and ask you a quick question that I know
Yeah.
we talked about Ranger, and if, for some of our audience who are not familiar with it, maybe we have an international audience, because correct me if I'm wrong, but Ranger is a very specific targeted training because it's a special force branch of the military. Is that correct?
Yes, just On that side note, it's a 6 week school taught down in Fort Benning, and then they take you up into the foothills of Dahlonega, Georgia, and then down into the swamps at
Down to the
Eglin Air
swamps.
Force Base. And it's really it's very small unit leadership to train you to, and they try to simulate the worst of the possible worst combat conditions. So no food, confusing instructions, no sleep, and demanding physical effort. And it really is, you prove to yourself that you can operate and make good decisions in these most extreme circumstances. So when you get to Afghanistan or Vietnam or the real thing, you're going, at least I'm glad I'm not in Ranger School. It's easier in real life. So
Yes.
that's what that is. But the point I was trying to make earlier was that despite all of the best efforts to select in, to train, to weed out, to have super high standards, it I've seen people that graduate the academy, graduate Ranger School that should not be there. I've seen people that fail that should have made it. Now, for the vast majority, they do a good job. So it's not a slam dunk, and so I would answer that by saying I think you can take raw talent a long way toward that, but there's still some intrinsic things like where they say leaders are born, not made. There is some, I think, personality styles. I think you have to be a servant leader. You have to have some self-confidence, and you just can't fake that. And you just can't train somebody to do that. You can give them techniques, but if they don't have some intrinsic personal values and skills, no amount of training is going to fix that.
Something you just said that kind of resonated with me, because here's I'm thinking also, it doesn't have to even be in the military with that kind of training. I'm just thinking the doctors, the practitioners out there, maybe in ER. Not all doctors can be in ER. Like you said, they'll have the education, they'll have all the training, but at the end of the day, it's so specialized. It's very specialized training and education. But if you don't have the stomach for it, you don't have the heart and passion for trauma medicine, you will not belong in the ER. And that's one of the biggest things I think many of the leaders out there have a challenge, thinking that they all are leaders. Oh, people elect me as leaders, but they don't necessarily know how to lead. And that's kind of scary at times.
Very true.
So Len, let me